Hey, what's up, turtles? It's Krik here with Black Owl Outdoors. And today I wanted to do a video using the DIY camp stove. I've done a previous video on, but I wanted to do a boil test with this stove. A boil water test, excuse me. This is the stove right here that I made. Got a little bit of wet ground on it. So I already did a video showing the ins and outs and this kind of sort of specs on this. But this is the stove I'm going to use, made out of 2 food cans. And for me personally, why I choose to do a boil water test, because you can cook. Yes, you can cook on stoves, and that's all fine and dandy, but the ultimate test for a piece of equipment such as this for me is how long it's going to take and how well it's going to boil water to be able to disinfect water. So that's why I'm choosing to do a boil water test with the stove today. Follow me over to the water. So I have about 2 cups of water in here, maybe a little bit more, just as a gauge to help gauge the time and all that with the stove. So to get this fire going, what I'm going to be using is a gnarled wax cotton ball that did not turn out as well as I hoped. There's not a lot of fibers actually at all in here. So I'm just going to use a match to get this started, drop this in, put a little bit of birch in it, and then add some fuel. But before I do that, I want to talk about the fuel. This is some hardwood I have that I batoned down. This is very, very dry wood. And the type of fuel you use is going to affect how this cooks all the time. Just like any type of fire you're going to use. The principles of fire making apply directly and are pretty much the exact same when trying to cook and use this type of stove, because you are going to use the open fire. So fuel comes into play, the size, the type of wood, the oxygen, the fire triangle, the heat, oxygen, fuel, all that comes into play. So that's something that will affect how efficient this works for you. Just basic as a type of fuel will affect how this performs. With all that said, this is an efficient stove, like I said, with the airflow and the design. So just this little bit of wood I'm going to be using to get water boiled. If I were to have this just as an open fire, traditional, open fire would not burn really that well to work, but because it's contained with this efficient airflow design, it's going to work really well. So to get this started, like I said, I'm going to get this wax cotton ball on fire, drop that in, get some birch bark, get a little bit of a fire going in there, and start adding fuel to it. And because I know this is a really efficient design, I kind of went a little heavy with the fuel load, because I know I'm going to wait for this to actually get to like a maximum flame where I know it's burning good and efficient. You see how it's smoking right now? It's not where I want it, but you can see the flame starting to grow. And pretty much once the smoke starts to dissipate, and I can tell it's burning really well and hot and efficient. Once this goes out, I will then add the stand and start to boil some water. All right, now that I have good flame and I can see the smoke is pretty much stopped, I'm going to put the stove stand on top and get the water on top. And then once I get this on, I'm going to start a timer on my phone, and we're going to see how long this takes. Timer started. And with my experience, the amount of fuel I have in there, the type of fuel, I shouldn't need to add any more to have this at a rolling boil. You can see how high these flames are coming up. I'm getting really good airflow. The fuel is burning really well right now. So it shouldn't take long at all. We shall see. And like I said, I really loaded it with this fuel. This is actually a pretty big flame. Really big, actually. Burning really, really well with my fuel in there. Like I said, just be cautious anytime you're using open flame like this, where you are with your surroundings, anything, any other type of fuel on the ground that could potentially catch on fire. You can see around me, this is like a sandy substrate. It's completely saturated. I'm not worried about even a little bit of embers falling, or excuse me, coals or embers falling down onto the ground right now. It's pretty much cleared of anything that could potentially burn. And if this pot was blackened, I cleaned it from the last time I used it, but if it was blackened, it would actually absorb the heat faster from the fire, and it probably will actually burn the take the heat and heat the contents inside of the pot even faster. Well, the fuel pretty much burned up now. It's at right under 3 minutes. I'm going to add some more fuel. Not a problem. You can see there's no flames. Not a problem. There are some coals in there, and I'll show you how easy it is with the correct amount of fuel to get this burning again. Add one more piece, and then with a delicately placed breath, should just push all the heat out and form a vacuum. It's going to suck it all up and get a flame back in this pretty quick. And one more. Just got done adding a little bit more fuel to that. Running over 5 minutes now. I can see there's already steam. Looks like there's some steam starting to come out of the pot. Yep, I can hear bubbles, I can hear boiling. So I have a little bit of boiling going on, not a rolling boil. I'm not completely happy with that. So we're almost at a rolling boil where I liked it. I'm gonna add a little bit more fuel to this just to make sure. I want a sustained rolling boil just to make sure if I'm disinfecting this water to make it drinkable. Depending on your altitude and all that, if you're at a boil, that should be the critical temperature where you're gonna kill pretty much everything in the water and be safe to drink. We had some technical difficulties with my phone resetting, but it was right at a little over 8 minutes. I want to say 8 minutes 3 seconds when I saw it, so maybe 10 seconds until I started it. So when we see the finished time of this boiling, it'll be 8 minutes on top of that, and realize I'm talking through this the whole time, and it's gonna be a little bit longer than you would if I wasn't talking. It is just so damp in this mountain valley. Now I'm putting the pot on before the stove is actually burning at its efficiency with this fuel type I have and the conditions surrounding it, being the humidity in the air and all of that. You can definitely get fuel to last longer than what's happening here. This is burning really quick, so I'm just working it as the situation presents itself. I'm adding a little bit more fuel than I needed to, but nonetheless it's still really not that much fuel to get water boiling and make it disinfected with just this little bit of controlled fire. I'm gonna bet we're gonna have a rolling boil on this last load of fuel. And there we have a rolling boil. So like I said, add about 8 minutes onto what this timer has right now, was at 3.5. So about 11.5 minutes to get this rolling boil, considering that I'm talking through this, which takes a little bit more time. Obviously, every video I talk and explain things, it takes longer than it normally would if you weren't explaining it. So always keep that in mind, just in general. Like I said before, depending on your elevation, once you get a water to a boil, it should be fine to drink. But just to be safe, let it go for about a minute at a rolling boil to make it safe for drink and human consumption. Had to add a little bit more fuel than I've needed to before in the past, but that's okay. The situation is going to be different every time you use this. That's the variables with having a fire in general. But nonetheless, it's a cool little idea, something you can make at home with very minimal tools. You could make this all by hand if you didn't have a drill. I'm sort of working on a way to be able to do that, make it really easy. But nonetheless, it's really cool, cheap, something to do at home in the winter when it's really cold out and you still have that longing to be outside. You can still make things that sort of take your mind there. Again, if you have any suggestions on this stove, you have experience using this stove or anything similar, please let me know. Leave comments, link a video, all of that. I really want to learn more and as much as I can all the time, so please don't hesitate to offer some criticism, constructive criticism, some suggestions, tips and tricks you've learned along the way with your experience. And that's basically all there is to it, to this stove. Getting some fuel going, getting the fire going, letting it burn. Remember to check out blackoutdoors.com. Check us out on Facebook. Check out Blackout on Instagram. This is Krik signing out with Blackout Outdoors. Later, turtles.